Hello, everyone. I'm Christine Gritman. Oops, I've got my guest in this scene. Didn't mean to do that. He'll be here in a moment. I'm Christine Gritman right here, and you are right here on Let's Talk About Brand. I do this show every single Friday at 12 noon Eastern, or whatever time it is where you are. We're also 9 a.m. Pacific time. We are 5 p.m. British time, which is especially relevant this week, many weeks, honestly. We have a very wide audience in the UK and in Europe in general, so we love that. Tell us where you are joining us from today for Let's Talk About Brand. Tell us in the comments. Also tell us where you're joining us on, because we are live right now on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So please do tell us also if you are live or in the replay. So that's a whole bunch of information, but the fact is it does help us to know where you are, where you're listening from, and why you tuned in, of course. And a lot of you have probably tuned in because you were part of Chat About Brand. That is our companion Twitter chat every single Tuesday, same time of day, 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. British time. And Chat About Brand on Tuesdays is a Twitter chat where we discuss the same topic as that Friday's live interview show is going to be on. The Tuesday chat does not have a guest. You are the guest. And one of the opportunities there is to ask questions for me to pose on the Friday live screen where I do have an expert guest. We have a couple of those questions today. It always makes me very happy when we have questions. So without any further ado, I'm going to get to questioning our lovely interview subject today. Today we are talking to Bob Gentle. I was just interviewed by him last week for his podcast. I got to find out when that's coming out. So Bob has a great business podcast and an agency and all that stuff, and he does personal branding stuff as well. And we are going to talk specifically today about personal development. Personal development, how it can help you as a person, how it can help you professionally, and how it can even influence and become part of your personal brand. So without any further ado, let me bring on Bob. Hello, Bob.
I was not expecting the sound effects. Thank you very much. I feel honored.
I missed them, quite honestly. So I used to do this show the way I'm doing it now, which is Ecamm plus Restream. And then I started doing it natively in Restream for a while, but they don't have the sound effects. And now I'm back to Ecamm plus Restream. So I'm happy I have my my sound effects. Someone in the comments said Swanky Tunes, Gritman. That actually, my theme music was custom composed by a friend of mine from high school, Paolo Kapunin. So love it. So Bob, how you doing?
I'm very well. I think I've had a very busy time since we met in San Diego for Social Media Marketing World.
Absolutely.
I had so many people I meant to catch up with afterwards, but I've been just buried with all the action that I've had to take on all the inspiration that I had. So if you're watching this and you're waiting for me to catch up with you, I have a big list. I will get there.
I know, it's like being Santa. You know, you've got the huge list. You got to check it twice. I have lists too, but you know, we'll get to all of you. We promise. So Bob, tell us all this stuff you've been busy with, of course, but tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and especially in the branding space.
Well, the short version of the story is I work in the personal branding space. Mostly. I do sort of little bits of digital marketing consulting at a corporate level around that. But largely I'm working in the personal development and personal branding space. The two go very much hand in hand for me because, well, I'll come to that in a little while. So I am the host of the Personal Brand Entrepreneur Show, where I interview amazing people like you, people who are on the personal brand business journey. And I think the journey is important because it's a personal brand journey, not a personal brand event. And this is what we're going to be speaking about today.
Let's talk about that, about the fact that it is a journey, not an event, because a personal brand, people who overstress it tend to feel like it's something they have to, almost like it's a product to launch. Like it's something where they have to kind of refine it and do all of that stuff and put it out to the world fully fleshed out and perfect. And that's not what it is at all. It is a journey. So tell us a little bit about that and sort of even how you define a personal brand?
Well, my version of personal brand is probably very similar to the classic what is a brand? And it's what do people say about you when you're not in the room? This is the standard definition of a brand. A personal brand is where they're not talking about the business, they're talking about you. And everybody has a personal brand. You may not be particularly comfortable with that, but everybody has one. People talk about us when they're not in the room sometimes. But how are you cultivating that? How are you in control of it? How are you sending that in the direction you would like it to go? How is that supporting your mission? This is really what the personal brand is about. Your mission might be business, it might be nonprofit, it might be simply doing your best in the world for whatever reason, but you have a personal brand. So, how are you cultivating that? If it's a personal brand business, you are out front and center in your business. Your business and your person are very closely bonded. And anybody in the expert space, anybody that's a consultant, a creative, you are your brand, essentially. Whether you like it or not, you can control it or you can be controlled by it. What I mean by the journey is nobody's finished. Nobody's finished growing. Nobody's finished becoming. And what I've found on my personal brand business journey, you probably found the same, Christine, and anybody listening will identify with this. When you first have to start showing up online, it's for most people, it hurts. It's painful. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating.
You're very exposed.
You,
It's a
you, yeah,
vulnerable thing.
your job is to make a fool of yourself until you become quite good at it. And then you can stop, you can just coast, you can do what you always did, or you can continue growing, which is what the big personal brands that we all know do. They didn't stop growing, they continued growing. So there was one of my podcast guests said something that's always stuck with me because she ran a business making soap. And you would think, whoa, really? That's a business? Yes, it's a business.
Oh, of course
Lots of
it
people,
is.
I know, I'm being funny here,
Got it.
but lots of people start businesses when they need to make a buck making soap at home. It's one of these standard go-to things. You know, what can I do to make money? I can make something. What can I make? Soap. There's instructions for that online. But she turned it into a $27 million business in 3 years. And I wanted to understand, what is it about you that allowed you to do that when so many people have tried it and they haven't done that? And her response when I asked the question was, your business will grow when you grow. And that was so important because if you look at anybody, you look at Gary Vaynerchuk, you look at Russell Brunson, you look at Tony Robbins. If you just said to me, hey, Bob, you know what? Tony Robbins, he wants to take a back seat for a while. Could you run that business? I would destroy it in a week because I'm not the person that I would need to become to do that effectively. So what that tells us is if you want the big things, you have to play bigger. As a person, you have to become bigger. So that's, for me, why personal development is so closely bonded to personal branding.
Now let's
Whether you're
talk
at the
about.
very,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, whether you're at the very beginning of your journey where you're just trying to break out of your shell, or you're well down the road and you're trying to level up, the personal development is closely bonded at every stage.
Let's talk about personal development. First of all, when we're talking about it in a business context, one question to be asked is there's personal development, there's professional development, and it sounds like this is sort of a bit of both. Where are those lines there to you as to what constitutes personal development, professional development, and both? Is there a line?
There is and there isn't. So you could talk about knowledge and experience. They're slightly different. Knowledge is information, but we all have access to the same information. So if we all have access to the same information, why don't we all see the same results? It's because we don't have the experience. It's perhaps we haven't worked through that information in the same way. So professional development for me is really about the information gathering, And I guess the personal development is about the working through that information and internalizing it. It's a bad distinction, I know, but it's all I can come up with.
You've got to work on that and develop that, Bob. No, just kidding. Now, there's so many different ways to develop ourselves. There's certainly no shortage nowadays. Everybody wants to sell us a book, a program, have us listen to their podcast, have us watch their live stream to develop themselves, to become a better version of themselves. How do we kind of block out that noise and focus in on what we want to develop and what is going to actually be worth the effort to get us there?
Well, you're absolutely
Small
right.
order, small order.
Well, it is. It's really complicated. You've set me up very nicely for an answer. But um, the truth is, if you walk into any bookstore, there's just a wall, probably aisles of personal books, and they're all right. That's the problem. They're all absolutely correct. It's just what matters for you today. And I spent a bit of time looking at this, and we haven't even discussed this, but I have a book I'm working on. You don't know this at all, so apologies for not prepping.
It
And
is
it's
all good. I'm happy for you to promote.
called The Seven Blades of Good Fortune, and it really is talking specifically about this. It's all the things that you could cultivate in your personality. What are the ones that really matter for your personal brand business or any business in general? And trying to categorize all the different things that we could work on into some logical groupings. So I'll just sort of roll through them. The first one is what I would call dreams and vision. It's your ability to know where you would like to go, to what are your aspirations, have a little bit of fantasy. Some people aren't really very well developed there. What do you want from life? Oh, I don't know. I just want to make a little bit more money. That's a poor vision. So cultivating your ability to fantasize, to have vision. Then the contrast of that is discipline and productivity. How good are you at implementing your ideas? Most of us are very bad. But if you look at anybody that's working at the peak, anybody that you look at as a role model, they're probably pretty good at getting stuff done. So that's maybe an area where people need to look at. One thing that I've also found is your ability to network on the one end, but cultivate community on the other.
And they're
It's
very
not just
different
about,
things.
yes, but it's all about how you engage with other people in as giving away as possible. Yes, you need from other people, but people, life is about reciprocity and win-win. So it's not just about what you can get. And a lot of people's approach to networking is who can I manipulate or who can I hustle? Who's going to help me get what I want?
Yeah.
That's not how the world works. Then there's creativity and imagination. Any content creator, if you want to win the personal brand business game, you need to be creating content. You need to cultivate your creative muscle. And there are exercises for this if you understand that this is important. Another one is positivity and mindset. That if you don't have your head on right, it's going to be very hard for you to get up in the morning and make a fool of yourself, because that's what it's going to take. There are lots of things that are probably more urgent than me coming on a live stream with you. I have clients screaming at me for things that they wanted a week ago, but being able to distinguish the important and the urgent, they're two different things. So a positive mindset really matters. The next one is confidence and swagger. Anybody that you look at online, they might look like they're playing their A game. They might look like they're having their best day, but they're probably not. But they're putting on a face for the world. That's their job. And being able to cultivate that's so important.
I have had moments where both before and after this show, I've been in the middle of something personally or professionally, and I've been, crying my eyes out. I had a situation just a few months ago that's like very searing in my brain where I got really kind of big news dropped on me right before going to guest on somebody's live stream. And I get extremely puffy and red, and like I can't hide it if I've been crying. So I pulled together this ability to just be like, I'll fall apart after. And I went on, I did their live stream. You would never have known I was like this. Right now I'm actually having a great day. So this is not put on, but the fact is I was able to put this on for that. And then as soon as the camera went off, I was just, mascara down the face. I got back into my pajamas. I curled up in bed. But you have to be able to do that if you're gonna sort of serve in that way. Sorry, just had to put that in there because that's something that people see this all the time, and I'm not this all the time. It's not fake, but I'm able to study what's happening when it's real.
Yeah.
And then just do that.
And here's the thing. I mean, if you have to make a YouTube video or you have a podcast interview booked and you get some bad news or you have an argument with a partner, or like my son got knocked off his bicycle the other day and it was crazy. Yeah, you have to deal with those things, but you can't afford to let those things carry on for that long. So that's where the positivity comes in. But the swagger, that was what I was talking about. Looking like you own the place is important, and it doesn't happen overnight, and it takes a bit of time to cultivate. I'm not suggesting fake it till you make it, but look like you believe it. That's the most important thing. And then the last one is knowledge and understanding. Yes, you need to be a lifelong learner. Anybody that is truly successful in their business, they're not done learning. They know that if they want to stay at the edge, if they want to stay as a market leader, if they want to stay as the thought leader who gets continued booked to speak again year after year after year, they're going to have to show that they're current. They're going to have to stay current. So you need to be a lifelong learner. So those are the 7 blades. And at the heart of that is what I would call your spark. It's the reason you get up in the morning. What's it for? If you don't know, you better go find out.
What's your spark?
For me, I spent a long time on this, and I have discovered that different people are motivated by very different things. Some people are motivated by money. Some people are motivated by acclaim. For me, it really is unlocking potential. That's the thing that gets me up in the morning, is if I can see somebody being able to do something they couldn't do before. For me, that's just like playing with fireworks. It's the best feeling. It's exciting and exhilarating when you can see the aha moment and somebody's able to move past what was holding them back and bring their gift to the world. That's just the most magical thing for me.
Absolutely. Which makes sense that you, even though you're not formally a teacher in the traditional sense, you are an educator. And that's a huge part of what's satisfying for educators. So that makes so much sense. I wanted to go back to something, which is that there's so many. So we know what to develop. And that was incredibly helpful, that 7 blades. I love that concept. How do we know how to develop it? Because there's a million, programs trying to sell themselves to us about how to do it. And, this will unlock your potential. This will help you, have that swagger and all of that. How do we know what's nonsense? How do we know what's good? And one person's nonsense may be another person's good. So how do we know what's right for us?
I think once you understand that these are the 7 aspects that you need to worry about, most people listening will know, okay, this is the blade I need to sharpen. It's the one that matters today. Once you know that, going to find the information is actually quite easy. If you want to cultivate a better network, there are a million books on networking. What matters is that you make consistent effort. It's the same with the confidence side of things. If you're really insecure about showing up on video, then maybe you just need to record yourself on video every day for the next 6 months. Never use the video for anything, but you'll start to understand what you look like and you'll get better at it. So simply knowing which are the blades that are blunt, which needs sharpening, because you'll be strong on some of these and you'll be weak on others. You sharpen some, the ones that felt sharp before, you realize actually now they're a bit blunt, and just gradually working your way around the circle so that you're consistently improving on each of them. So I don't have a simple answer.
That's fine.
For for exactly what to do. It's just knowing where to look is the hard part. I am working on some simple exercises for each of these, but I'm not ready to share.
That's fine. Now, in your own personal brand journey, Bob, what have been the things that you've had to personally work hardest on sharpening? Because, of course, all seven, some of those things come more easily to us than others. Positivity comes super easily to me, whereas others, might have had a bit more of a struggle. So, what have been the ones that you've had to work the hardest on in your own personal brand?
I think I would say for
Sorry
me,
about
there's
that.
a few things. The biggest one for me was not knowing where I'm going. I am a big planner, and for a long, long time, if I didn't have a really clear idea of where all this was going, I wasn't taking action. But what I learned was you learn in the doing, and you'll course correct as you go. Um, a lot of people, they don't take action. I guess it's a little bit like driving a car at night. You can only see 25 meters ahead of you when you're driving at night. And if you never put your foot on the gas because you could only see 25 meters in front of you, you'd never go anywhere. But you know that when you put your foot down, you'll see further ahead. And a lot of people are like that when it comes to building their personal brand. They worry that they don't know exactly where it's going. Another thing that I guess held me back a lot was if I'm going to build my personal brand, I worry that every piece of content that I create is going to define me. And if that's true, what do I want to be known for? And that was paralyzing for a little while because you think if I post this on social media, everybody's going to think that's all I care about. But it's not. I think people pay far less attention to us than we think they do. So, where I came to with that was forgetting about every single social media post as the event and thinking of them more as individual stitches in a tapestry over time. And it's that tapestry that begins to define us over time. So you can play with your content a lot more when you look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, stitches in a
Another,
tapestry is a lot more beautiful and evocative than what I use, which is pieces of a puzzle. But it's all about the things that make up that whole picture. And that's another
yeah,
reason why putting content out there is important, because the more of them you put out, um, the less any one individual one has to have that much weight on it.
yeah. And I think that's why at the beginning, a volume play is quite important, that you need to get some momentum going. Otherwise, you're constantly paralyzed by well, I didn't post anything for a week and now there's this, and everyone's going to think that's all I do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another thing that I think is very common is thinking people might not like it.
Yeah.
People might judge me. But actually, you come to the point fairly quickly that, you know what, it's important that people don't like this. It's important that people judge me because, as the old Einstein thing is, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. If you want to strongly attract some people, you have to celebrate strongly repelling others. You can't have one without the other. So it becomes quite liberating. You think, I'm going to create content that people don't like. I have to, because if I want some people to like it, some people have to dislike it. And what that ends up telling you is if I'm going to be liked for anything, wouldn't it be cool if it was for who I actually was and what I actually cared about? Because you're going to attract some, you're going to repel others. It's basic magnetism. There are two polarities. So let's make sure that the signals that I'm sending out attract the right people for the right reasons and not the wrong people for the wrong reasons. Because you're just going to have that basic effect anyway.
I love that. That's so, so important. And that's also what can give you that confidence and that swagger, because the fact is, you do own the place. You own this content. You own this personal brand. You own yourself. And who cares about the people? You're not making it for the people who don't get you. You're not. They don't matter.
I think once you understand that on YouTube there are billions of people. On Facebook, there are billions of people. You are not for everybody. You are for your people. You get to decide who that is. You get to express yourself fully and honestly. And some people will not like that, and that's fantastic. And other people will like it, and you can celebrate that because they like you for you. You get to do that. Where else do you get to do that? You walk into a room full of 100 people, you can't do that. It's not the same. So it is truly liberating once you understand that.
Amen. So Bob, what are some, actually, oh, you know what? I was about to ask you some of, I'll wrap it up with that, but with what I was about to ask you. First, I'm going to pop over to some of the questions we got from people on Chat About Brand on Tuesday. So I'm going to dig into those. So Maiko Sakai would like to know, in what ways do you share your personal development journey without being the person who gives unsolicited advice? You don't want to be that person who every day is like, oh, in Atomic Habits, I heard you should do this, so I'm doing that. You don't want to narrate your life and insist everyone else go through your development journey. But how do you share it without being annoying?
I think this comes down to, I hate to use the word content strategy, but if you are somebody who very rarely posts and then you show up talking about Atomic Habits, you're going to come across as one-dimensional and preachy. But if you're somebody who was showing, hey, you know what, I went snowboarding last week, and then I went to a conference, and here's a video I made on, what am I going to say? Video confidence. And oh, by the way, I'm really poorly disciplined in this particular area, and I've been reading Atomic Habits, and it's really cool. And you're that authentic with it, rather than saying, you know what, children, you should be doing this because it's good for you. Nobody wants to hear that. But genuinely and authentically sharing, I feel I could be stronger here, so this is what I'm working on. That's going to carry better, I think.
Absolutely. And I love that. It's about not being one note. That's how to get away with doing basically everything. Is making sure
Yeah.
that people can take the messages that serve them and leave the others. And you have that variety there. We have another question from Yatharth Sharma. And Yatharth wants to know what to do when your efforts on your development journey may not seem to be working and you feel like you're stuck.
On your personal development journey, we're talking here. There's a book called Choose Yourself by James Altucher. I would read that, would be my go-to. He has 5 daily practices for essentially getting unstuck. And I've used them, and they are gold. And I recommended this to somebody just the other day. But essentially, the answer is move. There's a very strange book, I can't remember the title of it, that's talking about all kinds of metaphysical hoo-ha. But she has this practice called Anomalous Activities, which is basically when you're feeling stuck and you're not sure what to do something you've never done before, and do the same thing the next day. And set yourself the challenge every day to do something you would never normally do. It could be a very small action, or it could be a very big action. But I find that from time to time triggers your brain to go places you wouldn't have otherwise gone, and think about things always from slightly different perspectives. That's my weird idea, but read James Altucher's Choose Yourself.
I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much for all of that, Bob. It's been a fantastic discussion with you. I'm actually going to ask you to do 2 things while wrapping up. One of them is tell us a few of your own personal favorite sources for personal development that you have experienced yourself, and then also tell people where they can find you and what they'll find there to, further their own personal development.
I'm going to recommend one book, and for me, it sums up, we're all on a journey. It's never finished. We're all the heroes in our own story. Some people never really set out on that journey, and for me, that's very, very sad. And others go on that journey once and then think they're finished. But the truth of the hero's journey is when you get to the end, you realize you're at the beginning. And there's a book called The Alchemist. If you just Google The Alchemist book by Pablo Coelho, you'll find it. For me, it's the only book you'll really need to motivate you, to comfort you, to help you understand that you're never on your own and you're never finished, and that you should celebrate never being finished. Where people can find me, everything I do, just Google Bob Gentle. I'm super easy to find, whether that's YouTube, Instagram, and the podcast. I would welcome you at any of those. If you were to pick one, I would love some new YouTube subscribers. It's a new platform for me. So search Bob Gentle on YouTube. I'll see you there. Can't wait to meet you.
Fantastic. And speaking of your podcast, also, by the way, when's our episode going up?
When would you like it to come out? I can do it anytime. Not
Now.
this coming Monday. Next Monday is the simple answer.
Sounds good. And I will of course promote the heck out of it when it comes up, because I would love for people to hear our conversation there too.
That'd be amazing.
Thank you so much for being on, Bob. This was great.
Thank you for having me. You're my favorite.
Oh, I try. Thank you for being here. You are my favorite. Oh no, my camera is misbehaving at the end. Of course, couldn't have one without technical glitches. But anyway, join us next week. Next week, our conversation is going to be about home studios and how those can reflect your brand. Okay, this needs to stop misbehaving now. But as you just got a bit of a sneak peek behind the scenes at mine, how your home studio can reflect your brand. And we're going to be talking about that on Tuesday on the chat, which is Tuesdays at 12 noon Eastern over on Twitter. And we're going to be talking about that right here on the show, Let's Talk About Brand, on Friday with my friend Junaid, who is all about how to set up your home studio. So make sure to join us for all of that. The good camera has officially quit. I think that's my cue to go. But thank you so much for joining us, and join us next week.